Hey everybody, welcome to or back to my channel, My Kind of Stuff, and today is episode 3 of Try Not to Die. Alright, so we are reading book 3 in the Try Not to Die interactive adventure series. This one is called In the Pandemic. As the helovirus ravages the guests and crew of the cruise ship Aria, teenagers Dylan and Amy face quarantine while their loved ones fall ill. Docked indefinitely in the San Francisco Bay, the teenagers and those aboard face another grave threat as a seated terrorist group uses the situation to their advantage. With every choice possibly being their last, will Amy and Dylan have what it takes to survive? So this one seems a bit more like a thriller rather than like a horror, like some of the other ones. Um, I feel like we're still pretty close to the pandemic, and this one might be a tough one. Um, we'll we'll see. We'll see how we feel about it. I don't know if I'm really ready for a pandemic story. I know since the actual pandemic, there's been a lot of books that kind of dabble in it, and they've not all been my favorite. So honestly, I don't know if I'm expecting much from this story, but I did want to read the entire series because I had so much fun with the first book. The second book was just okay to me. It kind of bounced around, I think, a little too much, and it was hard to keep the characters straight. Um, I'm hoping because this one is more like they're just stuck on a ship in their cabin. I'm hoping there will be like less characters and easier to keep track of. But we'll see what happens. I'm going to go ahead and get started, and I will get back to you when it's time to make our first choice. All right, so it is time to make our first decision. We kind of start off this book by meeting Dylan and his family. They are all quarantined in their cabin. His parents, unfortunately, are quite sick, but he is not. Um, Everyone's like kind of told to stay in their cabins, but now they've stopped delivering food. So he has to go down and get food for his family so they don't starve. So he gets down to the cafeteria, and he sees his friend Amy in line waiting for food, and she's kind of being bothered by this weird guy who's like not wearing his mask and like tapping on her shoulder and getting all up in her face. So our options are either to confront him and tell him to kind of back off, or to ask Amy to come stand at the back of the line with us and we'll leave security to deal with him. Um, I think we're going to let security deal with him because this is not my circus. I am a kid on this cruise ship. So, yeah, I don't think I need to insert myself anywhere and get into any more trouble than is already going on. So I'm going to go read this next bit and I will check back in with you guys when I find out if I picked correctly or not. All right. So asking Amy to come to the back of the line with us worked. Amy and I were just kind of chatting about our families. We found out that her mom got extremely sick and was taken away by security and the medical staff, and she doesn't know where they took her. We know where the medical bay is. Um, so there was talk of like going to sneak in there and try and find out. But as we're waiting in line, because in order to get into the cafeteria, a med team is there to like take everyone's temperature. There's a gentleman in front of us whose temp was too high, so he gets denied and like is basically taken away by the medical team, but he's throwing a big fit about it. Um, we finally get cleared, get through, and kind of sit down at a table just to chat for a little bit. And while we're sitting there, we notice some really weird guy kind of like scoping out the hallways. Um, and we don't really know what is going on there. Um, but now we have to make another decision. So we can either go investigate the guy creeping in the hallways, we can go sneak into the medical bay to find out about Amy's mom, or we can just take food back to our rooms and hang out with Amy. I think, oh man, this is hard. Like, obviously, the safe bet is to go back to our room, but I'm also interested to see what happens if we choose the other ones. I don't know. Let's just try going back to the rooms first and see what happens from there. All right. So at this point, Amy and I have gone and grabbed food for ourselves and our family. We go to sit down at a table just to eat our food and chat a little bit more. As we're sitting there, we still see this weird guy like scoping the hallway. And then all of a sudden, six more guys show up and kind of talk to him and then go down that hall. So we're still like curious as to what that's all about because we don't really recognize these people. We finally take the food for our families, which is basically rations at this point. It's like a mini bagel and a tiny bag of peanuts. Like that's all you get to eat. It's pretty slim pickings on the ship right now. But we're taking the food back towards the cabins, and we noticed the hallway that the weird people went down. The door is shut, which is a safety hazard on the ship. So we think that's a little off. And then all of a sudden, we're hearing like crashing and yelling coming from down that end of the hall. Amy decides that she wants to go investigate. So our options are either to follow Amy down that hallway or first yell for help from the guards that were at the like medical checkpoint. So I think we should probably yell for the guards. I don't know. I could be wrong. I could be bringing unneeded attention to us, but I don't know. We're just a couple of teenagers, and these seem like maybe mafia guys or something. I don't know. There's something weird going on. So I'm going to pick the call for help and see what happens. All right. Well, yeah, I drew unneeded attention to us. There were some men down that hallway with guns, one with a crossbow, who ended up shooting us and killing us. So the correct option was to just go check out the noise ourselves and not call for help. So, yeah, that was death one. I'm gonna go back and find out what happens when we make the right choice. All right, so we've crept in. We see this group of guys messing with the computer systems and trying to delete recorded information from the ship. So we know obviously something fishy is going on. They all have weapons. They also all have really weird names like Crow and Chicken and things like that. There's also Jason who works there, who's kind of creeping around too. And we know that like the sheriff is down the hallway further. So our options are to run past Jason and get to the sheriff, or we can ask Jason to come with us to try to escape, or we can just say screw it and run back to our cabin. um, I say let's be nice first and try and get Jason to come with us. I feel like it's probably the wrong choice, but I also feel like it's the right thing to do. So we're going to try and get Jason to leave with us, and let's see what happens. Well, as I guessed, that was the wrong choice. We try going up to Jason, asking him to leave with us. He ends up handcuffing us for some reason. I'm not really understanding why. But Crow, one of the bad guys, hears all the commotion and comes out and shoots a crossbow bolt through Jason's eye. They then take us captive out onto the deck and go to, like, we're on the top floor of the ship, and they go to throw us overboard. Uh, but we end up landing all the way down on the bottom deck and basically like just breaking every bone in our bodies and dying there on the ground. So death number two. And now we need to figure out if we want to run past Jason to get to the sheriff or run back to our my cabin. Um, let's, I guess, try getting the sheriff involved and see what happens. Well, things are not going well for me right now. So we tried running to the sheriff for help. We ended up getting caught up by this group of bad guys who attacked me with a machete and cut off my arm, and I died. Yep, things are going real well for me right now. That's a lot of deaths, not very far into the video already. So I guess we are going to ignore all of this and just run back to my cabin because that's our last option. All right, so we're peeking through this shut door. The bad guys notice us and start chasing us. We take off running down the halls. Um, we're at this point like starved and everyone is sick, and we know that we're not going to be able to outrun them. So we split up. Amy goes her separate way. One of the guys follows her. Another one is still following us. We get down near our cabin and we are able to like turn the corner and get our key card and into our room just as the guy is rounding the corner who was chasing us. We're not sure if he saw us open the door or not at this point, but we get into our room and our whole family is yelling at us because they're yelling at me because I don't have my mask on and they're being really loud. So I have two options right now. I can either throw my hands in the air and yell at them to shut up, or I can put a finger to my lips and whisper for them to be quiet. Um, Obviously, we are trying to hide from this crazy guy, so I say we whisper and see what happens. I'm really not doing so hot here. Um, we whisper to our family to be quiet, but of course, they're confused and still yelling and trying to figure out what on earth is happening. So the bad guy finds out where we are and is breaking down our door. We try pushing a dresser in front of it, but our feet are slipping on the carpet. Our dad comes over to try to help, but um he's really weak from being sick, so he's not much help. The bad guy gets his like boot wedged in the door, so the door is cracked open. He shoves his gun through the opening, and we yell at our dad to get down, but of course he doesn't react quick enough and gets shot in the head right there in front of the whole family. So that's not great. The bad guy continues firing off his gun into the dresser. Our mom and sister are at least back far enough where they won't be in danger from the gunfire at the current moment. And we basically decide that we need to sacrifice ourselves to save them. So we line ourselves up so that when we're shot, we fall and are blocking the dresser so the guy still can't get in and get to our mom and sister. And basically stand up to get shot in the head as well. Um, so yeah, that didn't go well. I guess at least we saved our mom and sister, but yeah. So I guess the correct option is to run into the room waving our arms and screaming at our family to shut up. So that's what we're gonna do. I'll check back in a minute. All right, so we're able to evade the bad guy. Unfortunately, he ends up going into our neighboring cabin's room where there is an older couple living. Um, and he breaks in by them, demanding to know where their son is. Of course, they're really confused because they don't know what on earth he's talking about, and he ends up killing them. Um, During this time, we're like kind of trying to figure out what on earth we're supposed to do. We're like listening to hear the door to the next door neighbor's cabin to like know that this guy left, but we don't hear it. So our options are either to kind of stay hunkered down where we are with our family, or we can run out into the hall, try to get to Amy because her dad is a cop, so he might have weapons, and hopefully lead the bad guy away from our family. Or we can run out on the balcony to our room and scream for help from there and try to like draw as much attention as we can to hopefully scare this guy away. I assume if we have a balcony, our next door neighbors also do, and the guy can just come out there and shoot us. So that doesn't necessarily sound like a great idea. Also, like, this guy knows we're in this hallway, right? So he could just continue checking other rooms. Um, so I say, let's go crazy. Let's make a run for it and see what happens. We know from the synopsis that Amy and I are supposed to be a team, so I assume that means we need to get back to her at some point. So let's give it a shot. All right. So our mom can hear the bad guy out on the balcony. So I'm glad I didn't go out there, um, talking to someone on the phone. So we decide now is the time to make our escape. We get out into the hallway, but the bad guy hears us wrestling with the door. So we end up fighting with him out in the hallway. We're able to like kick the gun away from him, but he still has a knife and is still after us. We're afraid that he's going to let us run away because we were able to hurt him. We found like this pole on the ground and we're able to smack him with it, so we hurt his leg. But we're afraid that he'll go after our family, so we try taunting him to get him to chase us. He finally does, and now we have some decisions to make again. So we have three choices. We can either run down below deck to Amy's cabin, we can run to the checkpoint, which is like where they were taking people's temperatures. So there's a med staff and guards on duty, or we can run for the bridge. That seems kind of out in the open. I don't know that that's the best idea. And again, I think we're supposed to get to Amy. So I'm going to choose the option to go downstairs and hopefully find Amy and see what happens. All right, so we are dodging all around the hallways, trying to evade the bad guys. We end up down that like medical hallway that we found, and all the lights are out in there. And um, turns out Amy's actually hiding in there because she was still running from all the bad men. And while she was hiding in there, she found out that that is where they are storing all of the dead bodies that have died from this helovirus. Um, and she's trying to figure out like if her mom is in there. And we kind of try to comfort her, tell her I'm sure she's not, and we need to keep going. We need to get away. So our options now are to either try to make it to Amy's cabin or run for the sheriff's help. I say we try to get to her cabin because, well, we know how trying to get to the sheriff went last time. So let's see what happens if we go to Amy's cabin because, like we already know, her dad is a cop and should hopefully have some weapons in their room. So yeah, let's find out what happens. All right, so Amy and I are running through the halls trying to escape to make it back to her family. We end up running into a group of these bad men, and we know that the galley, like the kitchen, is nearby, so we run in there hoping to hide. Um, End up getting a few of the cooks shot because of our decision to do this. And one of the bad guys gets a hold of us and repeatedly smashes our face down onto a grill. And of course, we die. Things are going well. I feel like I'm dying left and right in this one. Um, so I guess the correct choice was to run to the security checkpoint to get the sheriff, I think it was, or whatever. So we're going to do that. All right. So Amy and I are on our way. We're kind of dodging bad guys as we go. We stop in the galley hoping that there's some like kitchen employees that we can let know that there's terrorists on board and get help. Unfortunately, because this cruise ship took off from Italy, no one there was speaking English. They were all just speaking Italian. And basically no help. But we hear the bad guys coming, and our options are either to continue on through a tan door or to hide in the trash chute. Um, I don't really want to hide in the trash chute. That sounds pretty gross. So I'm going to try going through the door and see what happens. Well, that didn't go well. We go through the tan door, but of course, the group of bad guys was split up looking for us. So we have one coming behind us, one coming in front of us. So we're just kind of pinned, trapped in the galley. One grabs a frying pan and basically beats us to death with it. So I guess we're gonna go hide in the gross trash chute. Oh boy. Okay, so that didn't work either. Amy has me go first into the trash chute. I'm too big and get stuck, so she's stuck behind me. The bad guys hear us wrestling around in there and toss in a grenade. So, as you can imagine, that didn't go well for us. However, I found a snafu in the book because there was technically a third option. However, it didn't give me that option in the original chapter or after my first wrong decision. It only gave me the other option now after my second death. So that's really not completely fair. But I guess whatever the correct option is to go ask a security guard nearby for help. So I don't know what happened there. This is, book 3 of the series. I didn't have any issues at all with book 1 or 2, so I don't I don't really know what happened here. Either I missed something or they missed something, but whatever. We're going to go ask the security guard for help now. Okay. So, I'm a little irritated cuz we ended up in the trash chute anyway, but so we go to the guy to ask for help. He has a like kind of phone system that he can use to reach the captain. So we call one of the bad guys, pretends to be the captain for a minute. We tell him that, there's terrorists on board and whatever, because we don't know that it's a bad guy. And then he says something about me and the girl should stay where we are, but we never mentioned Amy when we were talking to the captain. So we know that it's the bad guys, and they're after us again. So now we are going into the trash chute, um, but we have the guy's help now, so he's able to hold open the door that gets us in by all the trash, which is how we got stuck before. Was not open. So I mean, I guess we did need him, but whatever. And now we are into the trash room, and we either have to basically tightrope walk across these very narrow ledges, or we jump down into the garbage and crawl our way across the garbage bags. Um, I'm not very graceful myself, so I'm gonna go with jumping down under the trash bags, though that does sound unpleasant. Um, I'm pretty certain I would fall. So let's see what our character does. The amount I am dying, y'all, is ridiculous, but we are dead yet again. We leave Amy up on the ledge while we jump down into the garbage to test it out. Turns out the bags aren't all that solid, and we end up slipping between them into this gross, murky, dirty water and basically get suffocated to death by all of the plastic bags. Um, while we're scrambling in the midst of this, we try to grab Amy's hand for her to help pull us up, but she ends up just falling off the ledge and falling into the water, and she dies right along with us. So I guess we're just going to try to scramble along the edge and see what happens. Okay, so Amy and I successfully made it through the trash room, While we were going through, we could hear commotion in the galley. All the bad guys were questioning the workers, trying to like figure out where we went. Um, we get through to the next room, and it's like a laundry room. So there's industrial dryers. There's some giant carts filled with lots of towels. Um, but we can hear the bad guy with one of the workers on the other side of the door. They're trying to get them to unlock it so they can come in and search. So our options now are to either go back through the trash chute into the trash room, hide in the dryer, or hide in the towels. Hiding in the dryer sounds like a terrible way to die. So I really don't want to go back in by the trash. Let's try hiding in the towels and see what happens. Okay, so we successfully hid in the giant laundry bins. The bad guys came into the room, started checking the dryers, and decided it was kind of a waste of time. Called Crow, which is their leader, to get permission to like stop digging through everything. And they end up killing the worker that let them into the room for some reason, I guess probably just because they didn't want him going and telling on them. Uh, so we kind of wait till we don't hear anything else and peek out from the laundry bins, see that the coast is clear for the moment. And now our options are either to try to run to get the officer that we still have not successfully gotten to, or to go to Amy's cabin in hopes that her dad has some guns. Um, I don't know here. Let's I'm interested to like meet Amy's dad, so maybe let's try heading there again and see what happens. Well, at this point, it shouldn't come as any surprise, but I picked wrong again. We were supposed to go down the hallway to the left to Officer Downing, but while we were trying to escape and get to Amy's dad's, the bad guys caught up with us, hit us with a bat, and broke our spine, and we died. We're really having a hell of a time on this ship, let me tell you. So I guess let's go try to get to Officer Downing now. Starting to think we're just never gonna get to Officer Downing. So for some reason, on our way to get to him, we stop in the galley again, where these bad men have murdered everybody in disgusting, gruesome ways. Um, we make our way through the galley, and there's a bunch of like meat hooks hanging from the ceiling. The bad guys catch up to us at this point, and our options now are either to sacrifice ourselves to save Amy, which I don't I mean, the whole point is for us to both survive, so I don't really understand why that would be the right choice. We could also throw the meat hook and charge at the bad guy, or we can drop the meat hook and take off running. Um, let's try throwing that meat hook, just see what happens. Well, so we throw the meat hook, take off running to try and get out of the freezer, but they slam the door in our face. So now we are trapped in the freezer where we will eventually freeze to death. But we can see through the window that when we threw our meat hook, instead of hitting the bad guys, we hit Amy, and now she's dying too. So, us. So, we can either drop the meat hooks and take off running, or we can sacrifice ourselves for Amy. Let's try dropping the meat hooks and taking off running and see what happens. At this point, I'm just expecting to die at every decision I make because that's how it's going. All right, so we go charging at the bad guy, kind of ram into him, throw him off balance. There's a huge tussle between me, Amy, and a couple of the bad guys. We end up knocking the gun away from one of them. And now our options are to either run and grab the gun and try to get away, or to take off running and still try to get to Amy's dad. We've already proven earlier in this book that we are not great at grabbing the gun off the floor, so maybe we just take off running. I Look, I don't know at this point. None of the options that make sense seem to be the right one, but whatever. That's what we're going with. I'll let you know what happened. All right, so we are taking off running down the hall. We get to that security checkpoint and we see Officer Downing there, but unfortunately, the bad guys have gotten to them and he is no longer alive. We can then hear another one of the bad guys coming around the corner. Um, so our options are either to send Amy into the pool area while we wait for the bad guy, or we can go run into the gym and send Amy to the arcade, or vice versa. We go to the arcade and send Amy to the gym. Um, I don't know at this point, honestly. Uh, let's try the first option, where we send Amy to the gym and wait for the bad guy and see what happens. Okay, so we sent Amy on ahead. We waited kind of behind a planter at the front of the pool area for the bad guy to catch up with us. Um, this pool area is like one of those ones on the cruise ships with like the water slides and all of that. So he is chasing us. We climb like up the water slides and basically are just like trying to shimmy our way across the room up above. And now we have another decision to make. Um, one of the bad guys is catching up to us, so we can either yell for Amy to come help us fight him, we can tell Amy to continue climbing up, or we can tell Amy to go down the water slide. Well, this whole sending Amy ahead thing has been working so far, so let's try telling her to continue going up while we wait for the bad guy. All right, so we are fighting bad guys left and right on our way, like up all of the structure around the water park. There is a zip line up ahead, and our options now are to either um, send Amy on the zip line and take the next one, or to both get on the same zip line, or to send Amy ahead while we again wait for the bad guys to catch up. Um, though it seems stupid to wait for them to catch up, that seems to be working well for us right now, so let's try it again and see what happens. All right, so we send Amy ahead on the zip line while we're waiting and struggling with the bad guys. We do end up getting ourselves strapped into the zip line and are about to take off across it, but the bad guy grabs on to the handles of it and is like going across the zip line now with us. Um, we end up getting this like rope wrapped around the bad guy's neck somehow and like are bouncing in our harness trying to like knock him off. We end up successfully doing that, and it's in a really gross way. And then he ends up falling down into the water, his head severed from the rest of his body. And that sends us like really shooting towards the end of the zip line. It's coming up quick. We hit the padded wall at the end of the zip line really hard, knocked the air out of our lungs. Amy's pointing to a door at this point and yelling at us. So our options are to either go down to her and run through that door, or we can call her up by us and continue across the higher part of the room. Um, Being up there has really worked in our favor so far. So again, we did so poorly at the beginning. We're not going to knock something that's working. So let's call her up by us and see what happens. All right, so Amy comes up, kind of helps us recover a little because we had knocked the wind out of ourselves. And we continue on, and we eventually get to a hallway with a staircase back down. So we go down there, we're running through the halls, but all of a sudden we see the bad men coming towards us. So we have to turn around and run back the other way. we end up coming to a point where there's a doorway into like a recreational area. So we go in there, try looking at the desk to see if we can find anything to use. Um, of course, we can't. So our options now are to try to block the door of the room that we are in. We can grab Amy and run back towards the pool. Or we can let the bad guy in and then lock the door, which that seems dumb. um, let's try just blocking the door off and see what happens. All right, so Amy goes off into a different part of the recreation area, even though we were telling her we think we should go hide in the batting cages. So we go there and get ourselves an aluminum bat to try and defend ourselves with. Um, all of a sudden, the bad guys are now in the room, but we are hidden. We see Amy kind of sneak in as well and stay hidden, and she has a bowling ball in her hand. Um, the bad guys got on the overhead speaker and called Amy's dad to the recreation area, so he's probably on his way. And then another bad guy walks in, and he has our mom captured and is threatening to kill her if we don't come out. So now we have another decision to make. Amy is waving at us to stay hidden, so our options are either to stay hidden and wait for Amy to make her move, or we can announce ourselves to the bad guys to help save our mom. I think let's do that. We're not going to put this all on Amy. Let's let the bad guys know where we are, and hopefully that'll save our mom. All right, so we step out. We find out that the bad guys also have our sister as well. And they're kind of baiting us to come out of the batting cage, but they see we have a bat, so they're trying to make us leave it behind. But then all of a sudden, to distract them, Amy steps out with her bowling ball, so we're able to get out of the batting cages with our bat still in hand. And there's basically just a giant showdown. Amy's dad shows up, our dad shows up, everyone's fighting everyone. We end up killing all the bad guys that are in the room between us all, and yeah, that's basically the end. Our family is safe. Amy's family is safe. We find out that our mom unfortunately got the Hilo virus, so she's needing medical attention to recover. But yeah, basically that's the end. We sail away happily ever after once all the bad guys are dealt with, and yeah, I don't know how to feel about this one. I definitely liked it better than book number 2, Try Not to Die and Brightside. Uh, but the fact that there was a mistake in here that like made me die twice because I wasn't even given the correct option is a little irritating. I think I'm gonna give this one a 3-star. Our next book I am quite excited about. That's going to be Try Not to Die in the Wizard's Tower. So I will be reading that one next month. And yeah, that's going to be it for this video. Make sure you give it a thumbs up if you're still around, subscribe if you're new, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Bye.